The air was heavy with smoke, metal twisted in the wind. Black clouds rose from broken ships. The battlefield was quiet now, but the silence was not peace. It was the sound of everything after the destruction, in the middle of the ruins. An alien girl knelt on the cold ground. Her arms were tied behind her back with rough cord. Her knees rested on ash and blood. Her body shook from pain, exhaustion, and fear. Her green skin was covered in bruises. Her face, once proud, now carried dust and defeat. Her name was Carol. She was a warrior of the Varani Empire, or at least she had been. Now she was a prisoner, and standing behind her was a human soldier. He did not speak. He simply stood there, tall and silent, holding a strange metal device in his hand. His armor was cracked. There was dried blood on his gloves. And yet, his eyes were calm. Carell waited. She had heard the stories. Humans take no prisoners. Humans burn what they conquer. Humans never forgive. So she kept her head down and braced for death. But instead of a weapon, the human reached into a side pouch. He pulled out a water bottle. He moved slowly, carefully, then stepped around to face her. Carol blinked in confusion. She didn't understand. He knelt in front of her, didn't say a word, just placed the bottle on the ground near her knees, and stepped back. She looked at it, then at him. "Why?" she asked, her voice dry and weak. The human tilted his head. "Because you look thirsty." She stared harder. "Aren't you going to kill me?" He shook his head. "Not today." The sun was setting behind the ruins. Firelight glowed on the metal walls of destroyed ships and shattered towers. Carol watched the human as he set up a small camp beside a broken pillar. He didn't chain her, didn't hurt her. He just made a fire, warmed some food, sat quietly. She didn't understand this. "Are you mocking me?" she asked. He looked at her. "No? This is a trick?" "No trick." "Then what is this?" He thought for a second, then answered, "A second chance." Carell narrowed her eyes. "You're human. We're enemies." The human poked the fire with a stick. "Maybe, maybe not. You should have killed me," she said. "It's what I expected." "You had your chance too," he replied calmly. "Back when I was down behind that wall, you could have shot me." She paused. Remembering that moment, yes, she had aimed at him, but she didn't fire. She hesitated. And now, here they were. He looked at her again. "So now we're both alive. Strange, huh?" She didn't answer. She simply stared into the fire. Later that night, she shifted on the ground, her hands still tied. She couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts, too much confusion. Then, a sound. Footsteps. He was walking toward her, her body tensed. He knelt behind her. No words. Just the soft sound of the cord being cut. Her hands dropped free. She spun quickly, ready to fight, but he didn't move. He stepped back and sat down again near the fire. "You're free," he said simply. "Why?" she whispered again. He looked at her. "Because you didn't deserve to die. And because I'm tired of killing people who look just as lost as I feel." She sat there, rubbing her wrists, still unsure if this was a dream or madness. They both sat in silence, not as enemies, but not as friends either, just survivors. As the fire crackled softly, Carell looked at him and finally asked, "What's your name?" The human smiled, just a little. "You can call me Jace," she repeated it under her breath. "Jace," he nodded. "What's yours?" he asked. She hesitated. "Carell." They both nodded once. Names exchanged. Like warriors who didn't know what else to do with their pain. Far above the ruins, a small drone floated silently in the clouds. It blinked red, recording everything. And, somewhere in a high-orbit ship, a voice said, "We found her, and she's with a human." Another voice replied, "Then bring them both in, dead or alive." The city was dying. Walls had collapsed. Streets were broken. Burned ships rested like skeletons across rooftops. The air still smelled of plasma and blood. Carell walked behind the human called Jace. Her hands were free now, but her heart was still tied with fear. Was this another trap? Was he leading her to a prison? Or was he truly different? No one had ever freed her before. Not even her own people. The sky above was gray. No sun, no wind. Jace moved ahead without speaking. His rifle was strapped to his back untouched. Every few steps he checked corners, looked above, watched the shadows. He was trained. But he didn't act like a killer. Carol followed silently, her boots crunching over broken glass. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "Northside." "There's a tunnel," he replied. "Leads out of the blast zone." "Why are you helping me?" Jace didn't answer. Instead, he stopped near an old vending station, smashed open the door, and pulled out 2 energy bars. He handed one to her. She took it slowly, still watching him with sharp eyes. "This doesn't make sense," she said. "Humans don't help people like me." "I'm not people," Jace replied. She frowned. "Then what are you?" He looked at her and said softly, "Tired." They crossed a collapsed bridge made of steel and bones. On the other side, they passed a small alley and stopped. A child's cry echoed in the silence. Carell's hand moved to her waist, remembering she had no weapon. Jace held out his arm. "Stay back." He stepped forward and found a young alien boy, maybe 7 years old, curled up beneath a broken cart. His leg was injured. His skin was pale blue. His eyes were wide with terror. When he saw Jace, he tried to crawl away. Carell stepped forward, her voice calm. "Wait. Don't move." The boy looked at her, confused. Her markings, her skin. She was one of his kind. "We're not here to hurt you," she said. Jace knelt beside the child and wrapped his wound with cloth from his bag, then handed him a small light beacon. "This will guide rescue bots here," Jace said. "Someone will find you." Carol watched quietly. In that moment, everything she had believed about humans cracked just a little more. They walked again. For hours. Through tunnels lit by burning wires, past broken statues of leaders who no longer mattered. "You didn't have to help that child," Carol said. "I know. He wasn't human. Neither are you. And you still helped me." Jace nodded. Carol shook her head. "Why?" He paused, looked around at the ruined city. "Because I remember what it's like to be forgotten." They stopped near an old checkpoint building. Inside, it was dusty but safe. Jace checked the scanners. "No drones nearby. We'll rest here." He leaned against the wall and slid down slowly, his face tired. Carell sat across from him. "I used to think humans were monsters," she said. "Most days." "I think the same thing," Jace replied. "But not you." He looked at her. "I used to follow orders. Did what I was told. Burned cities. Destroyed things. What changed? One day I stopped. And what happened? They called me a traitor." Carell went quiet. Then she said, "You're not the only one." She pulled back her sleeve and showed him a scar, a deep one that ran from her shoulder to her chest. "That's not from battle," she said. "That's from my own captain. I refused to kill a human child once." Jace looked into her eyes. "Then maybe," he said, "we're not so different." Outside, a shadow moved. A drone, small, fast, silent. It hovered above the building. Its red lens blinked once, locked on. Inside, Jace's scanner beeped softly. He stood up, grabbed his bag. "We've been spotted," he said. "They're tracking." "You. Or you," Carell replied. "Either way, we run." They left the building and disappeared into the dark ruins once again, and high above, the drone sent a signal back to orbit. Inside a warship, a voice growled, "Target confirmed. Deploy the hunter unit, no more running." The ashlands were dead. Nothing grew there, no sound, no color, only dust, broken bones, and cold wind. Carael walked behind Jace, her eyes scanning the endless gray desert. Each step left a mark in the ash that disappeared within seconds. It was like the ground didn't want to remember anyone. "What is this place?" she asked. "No man's zone," Jace said. "Used during the early years of the war, full of old weapons, poisoned air, and sometimes things that still move." Carael looked around. "Why come here?" "Because no one else will follow." He stopped and turned toward her. "Unless they're desperate." Far behind them, someone was following. High above in the sky, 3 silent drones tracked their heat signatures. Inside a black command ship orbiting the planet, Commander Voss stood in front of a hologram showing their trail. "They've entered Sector 17, an officer reported. Voss smiled. "Perfect. Send the bone dogs. Test their bond." On the ground, Jace and Carael reached a broken metal bunker half sunk into the ash. Inside, it was dark but dry. They sat without speaking. Carael looked at her hands, then looked at Jace. "You don't talk much," she said. "Words are easy," he replied. "Trust isn't. So you don't trust me?" He looked at her. "Not yet." She nodded slowly. "Me neither." A silence passed between them, heavy, but not cold. That night the wind howled. Carael woke suddenly. Something outside was growling, low and deep, like rocks grinding against metal. She stood slowly. Jace was already awake, holding his knife. "What is it?" she whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the shadows outside the bunker. A pair of eyes, glowing blue, stared back at them. Then another pair, and another. They were surrounded. Carael stepped beside him, eyes sharp. "Bone dogs," she said. "Mechanical predators. Used to clean the dead." "They're not cleaning tonight," Jace muttered. A deep howl echoed through the air. Then the first one charged. Jace grabbed his rifle and fired, the blast hitting metal, and sparks. Carael rolled forward and kicked another off its feet. Its claws tore her arm, but she didn't stop. They fought back to back, breathing hard, moving in perfect sync. One dog leapt for Carael's throat. Jace grabbed it midair and slammed it down. She turned and slashed another with a broken spear. Finally, the last one backed away, growling, then vanished into the ash. They stood in silence, bleeding, shaking. Jace looked at her. "You fight like a soldier. I was a soldier." He handed her a bandage. "You still are." She tied it tight around her arm and nodded. "You too." After the attack, they sat near the fire, watching the embers. Carael looked at him and said softly, "You could have left me." "I didn't." "Why?" "Because you didn't leave me when the dog came for my back." She smiled a little. "Then maybe you can trust me now." He stared into the fire. "Maybe." In the distance, the drone watched them quietly. Back on the orbiting ship, Commander Voss watched the footage and frowned. "They survived," his officer said. Voss leaned forward. "Prepare the next phase," he ordered. "I want her alive, but if the human resists..." He smiled coldly. "Kill him." The ashlands faded behind them. Now they walked through a silent canyon. Walls tall and jagged, shadows long and cold. Carael walked beside Jace, not behind. Their footsteps echoed like whispers of old battles. Neither of them spoke for a long time, until she finally said, "I lied to you." Jace looked over, calm but alert. "About what?" Carael didn't stop walking. "I told you I was just a soldier. I'm not." She reached into a hidden pocket on her belt and pulled out a silver disc. He slowed his steps. "What is that?" "A royal sigil," she said. "I'm not just a soldier. I was part of the Varani Royal Guard, protector of the bloodline." Jace stared. "So you were one of the elite?" "Yes." "Then why were you left behind?" Her jaw clenched. "Because I refused a kill order. They asked me to burn a village that was sheltering humans, women and children. I said no." "What did they do?" Carael stopped. "They turned on me. hunted me like prey, and now, I'm no one. Jace was quiet. He sat on a rock and finally said, "We're more alike than I thought." She looked at him. "You were military too?" "Black Ops," he replied. "Special missions, no names, no ranks, just targets." He pulled up his sleeve. A long burn scar ran down his arm. Old, deep, ugly. "They gave me that when I refused to fire on an unarmed ship. Said I broke the code." "So you ran?" "I didn't run," Jace said. "I just stopped fighting for people who stopped being human." The canyon wind blew hard. Kayrell sat beside him. "I was told you're kind, don't feel guilt." He gave a half smile. "Whoever told you that didn't look close enough." "And what do you see now?" she asked. He looked at her. "Someone who feels too much." As they rested, a small metal drone flew low above the canyon. It paused, scanned and sent the signal. On the orbiting warship, Commander Voss received the alert. "Target in canyon." "Both alive," the voice crackled. Voss leaned over the map. "Prepare the drop," he ordered. "Release the hunter unit." His second-in-command looked surprised. "What about the girl?" "We capture her," Voss said. "The human, we erase." Night fell. Jace and Kayrell built a fire in the canyon's corner using dry roots and old tech parts. Kayrell stared into the flames. "I never thought a human would sit beside me like this," she said. "And I never thought an alien would share my fire," Jace replied. "Do you ever think about what comes after this?" He nodded slowly. "Quiet. Peace. Maybe even sleep." She laughed, soft and real for the first time. "I haven't slept in peace for years." "Maybe," he said, "when that changes now, but in the shadows, something moved, quiet, crawling, watching." Later, Jace stood near the canyon wall, checking the sky. Kayrell approached, wrapping a blanket over her shoulders. She asked, "What are you looking for?" He pointed up. "I've seen those stars, before, back when the war started, before everything changed. Do you miss the man you used to be?" He looked down. "Sometimes." She stepped closer. "You're not that man anymore." He turned toward her. "And what about you? Who are you now?" Kayrell didn't answer with words. She just leaned her head against his shoulder. For a moment, nothing else mattered. No war, no walls, just warmth. But high above, a pod broke from the orbiting ship, falling fast, black as space, silent as death. Inside, the hunter unit was ready, trained to kill silently, designed to leave no trace. Their first target, Jace. The night was too quiet. Jace felt it first. His instincts, trained through years of war, whispered something was wrong. He stood up from the fire and scanned the canyon walls. "Get ready," he said softly. Kayrell sat up quickly. "What is it?" "They're coming." She grabbed her weapon, a short blade she had pulled from wreckage days ago. "How many?" "I don't know," Jace replied, "but it won't be friendly." Above them, silent black pods opened mid-air. From within dropped 6 hunter units and tall, armored, faceless. They landed like ghosts, without sound, without light. They moved through the rocks, scanning heat signatures. Their order: terminate the human, capture the alien. Suddenly, flashbang. Light tore the night apart. Kayrell screamed as her ears rang. Jace grabbed her arm and pulled her behind a broken pillar. Plasma fire lit the dark. One shot burned through the stone just inches from her face. "They're here," she shouted. Jace didn't respond. He was already moving, rolling, firing, diving. 3 shots hit his shoulder guard, but he didn't stop. Kayrell threw her blade. It struck one hunter's throat joint. Not enough to kill, but enough to stagger. "Keep moving," Jace yelled. "Where?" she asked. "Up." They climbed the narrow rock wall under fire. Stones crumbled beneath them. Jace pushed Kayrell upward, covering her with his body. A shot hit his leg. He fell halfway but grabbed the ledge. Kayrell reached down, eyes burning with fear. "Don't let go." "Pull me," he said calmly, even with blood in his mouth. She pulled him with everything she had. He rose beside her, limping, breath sharp. Below them, the hunters were climbing too, fast, ruthless, machine-like. They only had seconds. At the cliff's edge stood an old relay tower. Jace looked at it. We can overload it. Use the core as an EMP. Carell's eyes widened. It'll fry us too. Not if we're lucky. He moved to the panel and opened it. Wires. Old tech. Unstable energy. He looked at her. You should go. I'm not leaving. Carell, I didn't stay behind for my people just to run now. He stared at her, saw no fear, just fire. Okay, he said. Then we make our stand. The first hunter reached the top. Carell stabbed low. Jace fired high. The hunter fell. The next came, faster. 2 more climbed the side. Jace dropped a broken fuel cell. It exploded, took one with it. How long till the tower overloads? Carell shouted. 30 seconds. We don't have 30. Then hold the line. They stood side by side, 2 against many, backed against a broken tower in a forgotten canyon, and they didn't run. The final wave of hunters came. Silent, perfect, deadly. One hunter grabbed Jace by the neck, lifted him. Carell jumped and stabbed it in the eye joint. It dropped Jace, but not before slashing his side. Blood spilled fast. He fell to one knee. Jace! He looked at her, then pressed the last wire. Now! EMP burst. A blue wave of energy exploded from the tower. Everything turned white. Seconds later, silence. Real silence. No fire. No movement. Just dust in the air and a ringing in her ears. Carell opened her eyes. Around her, the hunter units were frozen. Offline, dead, scattered like statues. She turned. Jace lay still, his hand still on the broken wire. No. She crawled to him, held him, his eyes blinked open. Barely. You're alive? She whispered. Almost. He smiled weakly. Did we win? She nodded, crying. Yeah. We did. He closed his eyes. Good. Because I really hate losing. Far away in the orbiting ship, Commander Voss watched the feed go dark. What happened? They wiped the team, his officer said. We lost the canyon. Voss clenched his fists. Send word to Central Command, he growled. This human is no longer a target. He's a threat. Carell didn't move. She sat beside Jace, his head resting on her lap, blood still warm on her hands. The wind was silent. The sky above the canyon was turning red, not from battle, but from morning, a new day. And yet, it felt like something was ending. Stay with me, she whispered. You don't get to disappear now. Jace's breath was shallow, his face pale, his shirt soaked in red, but his hand moved, weakly, slowly, reaching for hers. She held it tight. You're not allowed to die, she said again. Not after everything. He smiled a little. You're bossy. She laughed through tears. I learned from the best. Hours passed. She found an old med-stim kit buried under a wrecked ship nearby. She used it all on him. Every patch, every dose. He didn't wake fully, but his breathing improved. It was enough, for now. She dragged him on a hover sled built from scrap and melted plating, through ash, through silence, through shadows, for hours. No food, no sleep, just purpose, just him, just survival. Then finally, lights, a rebel camp, deep in the outer crater. Their scanners picked her up, weapons aimed, until someone shouted, Wait, she's carrying a human. Another voice added, That's him. That's the ghost soldier. Rebels ran to help. They pulled Jace onto a med bed. Carell fell to her knees, shaking. Save him, she said. A rebel medic nodded. We'll try. 3 hours later, she sat outside the tent, staring at the dirt. A young alien girl walked up and handed her tea. Was he your mate? The girl asked softly. Carell blinked. No, he's more than that. Your commander? Carell looked up at the stars, her voice soft. He's the first person who ever saw me as something more than a weapon. The girl nodded like she understood. Inside the tent, Jace breathed slowly. The medics had done all they could. His body would heal, if he chose to live. But that choice, only he could make. A rebel leader approached Carell. We received your message, he said. You said you have proof? Carell nodded. She reached into her belt and pulled out a black chip. It glowed red. This holds data from the hunter units, visual feeds, voice commands, target orders. And the voice behind them? Commander Voss, she said. You sure? He gave the kill order himself. The rebels' eyes narrowed. If this goes public, Carell stood. Then they'll know the truth, that Jace wasn't a traitor, but a shield, that I wasn't a criminal, but a survivor. The rebel nodded. We'll broadcast it across the system tonight. The next day, stars changed. Media, hubs across sectors showed Jace's face. Alien news screens played the fight on the canyon wall. Voss's voice ordering, terminate the human, capture the alien. Carell's face standing beside Jace saying, we didn't ask for war, we just refused to be puppets. The galaxy listened, and the story spread like fire. Back in the tent, Jace opened his eyes, slowly, painfully. The first thing he saw was her sitting beside him, alive, safe, watching. You came back, he whispered. I never left. He smiled barely. I hate hospitals. She grinned. Then don't end up in one again. Was it worth it? He asked. Yes. They believe us. They believe you. Outside the tent, people were gathering. They weren't soldiers. They were citizens, refugees, forgotten ones. But now they had hope. Not from weapons, but from witnesses. Jace tried to sit up. Carell helped him. You ready to stand? She asked. He took her hand. Only if you stand with me. And together, they rose not as enemies, not as victims, but as a voice the stars could no longer ignore. Weeks passed. The war didn't end overnight. But something changed. Because of one broadcast, because of one human who refused to kill, and one alien who refused to stay silent. Jace's name now traveled across stars, not as a soldier, but as a symbol. Carell's story was shared in places where her face had once meant fear. Now it meant truth. And still, they stayed quiet, away from cities, away from cameras, just healing, just breathing. In the quiet hills beyond the rebel base, Jace sat on a rock watching the twin suns rise. His side still hurt when he moved. His leg wasn't perfect, but his heart? Lighter. Carell joined him. No armor today, just a simple coat, her blade now dull and tied to her back. You always sit here in the morning, she said. It reminds me I'm still alive. She sat beside him. They want to give you medals, she said. Titles, maybe even command. I don't want it, Jace replied. Why not? He looked at her. Because I'm not a savior. I didn't free anyone. I just didn't walk away. She smiled softly. That's what makes you worth following. Down below in the rebel base, children painted Jace's face on walls. But they didn't draw him with a gun. They drew him with his hand outstretched. Helping, Carell saw it one night and just stood there. Watching, she turned to a medic nearby. He didn't even want this, she said. And that's why he deserves it, the medic replied. On the last day before they left, Carell stood beside a small group of rebels at the edge of the landing. Field Darn, a small ship, waited for Jace. His name was clear on the passenger log, but no crew, just him. He walked up slowly, a small bag on his shoulder. Carell followed. So, you're leaving? Yeah. No goodbyes? He shook his head. You don't say goodbye to people who changed your life, you just carry them with you. She stepped close, held out a small item, his old badge, the one burned during the canyon fight, polished, cleaned, repaired. You dropped this, she said. He looked at it, then gently pushed it back into her hand. "Keep it," he said. "You earned it." They stood quiet. No fireworks, no flags, just eyes that had seen too much and still chose to believe. As the ship rose into the sky, Carol didn't wave. She just watched and whispered, "Thank you, friend." Months later, in a quiet desert town on a distant planet, a traveler helped a stranger fix a broken wheel. He asked for nothing in return. He didn't give his name, but when he walked away, someone noticed the mark on his jacket, the faint symbol of two hands, an open, not closed, and the child watching said, "Was that him? The human who saved the enemy?" His mother smiled. "No, sweet one. He didn't save her. He stood beside her. That's more powerful." Far across the stars, a monument stood. No gold, no speeches, just two figures carved in stone, one human, one alien, standing side by side. Below it, only one sentence. "He didn't take her life. He gave her reason to live."